Hello, Matthew. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to chat with you. We always kick off the show, though, before we dive into your story, which I'm a journalist by nature. I studied journalism in college, so I've always got some questions to kind of get us talking here, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. But first, we pick out hopefully some inspiration that someone might need to hear today. But it says, happiness is an attitude. We either make ourselves miserable or happy and strong. The amount of work is the same. So I don't know who Francesca Riegler is, but essentially says happiness is an attitude. We make ourselves miserable or happy and strong. The amount of work is the same. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love it. I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree. Yeah, you either have two ways you can go in a situation. You can either, you know, be down or just, try to spearhead it, and embrace the toughness, grow from it and fight through it. And in the same time helping others out while doing it. So I
Yeah.
agree with that quote. It's great.
Was there ever a point, like for me, I know in my caregiving story, even in my initial writings, like I kind of felt like I was deviating from like who I was in my core. Like I just was I'd cry easily. I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, who are you? Like, this is not who you are. And it was kind of an intentional choice that I made, that thought like, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and I'm going to figure out this stuff. And, and hopefully help others at the same time, like you said. But spearheading, I think, is a good verb that you used.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is.
It's what it is. Well, let's dive into your caregiving story, Matthew. Like, tell us a little bit about it. Like, how did this guy from Westchester, New York, married with his son, all of a sudden find himself like a family caregiver? What happened?
Which I knew nothing about, by the way, previously. I always thought it was something that you take care of with old people, right? That's always what it was. So anyway, with that, I met Kanleya back in 2009 online. Back when online dating like first came out, back when it was a little simpler, I guess. But there's still some stories back then as well that are funny. But we met online. Our first date was in New York. It took about a year for me to say she's the one. She has to be my wife. So proposed a year later. Um, we moved out of the city. Slowly made our way up to Westchester, where we bought a house, a fixer upper. I'll say 8 years ago. Um, it was quite a fixer-upper, and Kalei and I just worked really hard towards fixing it up year by year by year to start our family. And I probably skipped over it, but yeah, we got married in 2010, and then we started our family in 2017, where we had our son. And the house came along great. Kalei was my partner in crime. She helped me with everything. She was on the roof with me doing the tiles, which is like crazy, right?
Dang.
But she was Mrs.
That
Get
doesn't
It Done,
surprise me, though, really. Like, now I see her working so hard to get healthier, so it doesn't really
right?
surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah, she just had that attitude, that can-do attitude, right? So, um, okay, so we had our son in 2017, and sorry, there's so much to my story that I just
And
get
the
sidetracked.
the
It's
ovarian cancer, I think, right? That
right. So,
diagnosis.
so we had our son in 2020, height of COVID. Here we go,
Oh,
height of
geez.
COVID. Okay. She stopped working. She was a nanny for a family of three um, for years, and she stopped working in January. COVID hits. She wanted to focus on our son, obviously, more, as was the perfect time, right? Perfect age. And then fast forward to May 15th, 2020, the day
Oh,
it
no.
happened, the day that will live in infamy, right? She had a massive stroke in front of us that day. It was a normal day. I remember the things that happened that day, the scents, the smell, what she was wearing. Sorry, emotional time.
No,
It's funny the details of that day. I just
what do you remember
remember.
smelling? I'm just like,
Oh my God, just fresh air. It's very cloudy. We were on the trampoline with my son earlier that day. So it's just a normal day. Hopefully you can edit some of this out. I don't know.
I don't
Um,
want to edit it if you don't want to edit it, because I think it just shows that you're like a really real person. So,
yeah, it's just
and here's the thing, like
a lot of
Matthew, you have been through trauma. Like it's traumatic what you have experienced, you and Kanlea and your son, from whatever he can remember. I don't know if he remembers that day. So, um, but I think that we are all kind of going with you kind of in that moment. That there. So it's like in an instant, life changed for you.
boom. And I listened to one of your podcasts recently, and it's so true. It's like I feel like I died that day. Like we both died that day. I mean, part of us died, I should say, right? Not fully. And we touched about it earlier, but after this trauma, I feel like a different person, totally. And we both feel like different people. But regardless, we're both the parents we need to be for our son, regardless of, and we both put that first. So
How old is he
um,
now?
he's 6 now, 6 now. And at
Okay,
the
so
time, he was 3.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she had a massive stroke in front of y'all, and I'm sure hospitalizations, treatments, like
So,
you're learning your
yeah.
whole new vocabulary of things that you
Oh, my
didn't
goodness. Yeah.
want to
Things,
know, frankly.
things that I'm not supposed to know, I guess. Just kidding. So yeah. On the phone with 911. She was in a very awkward position on the couch. I remember looking back, offering her some food. She said no, and the next thing I feel is a Hot Wheels car hit my shoulder, and I look back, and she's in an awkward position. And that Hot
Mm,
Wheels card was her telling me, like,
help
help,
me.
something's going on. Obviously, I look at her and go, oh my God, yeah, something's off. 911, EMTs come. My son, uh, who knows what he was processing at the time, but I was on the phone with EMT. They took her to the hospital. I called my parents so that they can come watch Ty. I went to the hospital right after. They gave her something called TBA, which is a clot busting agent. Unfortunately, it did not work. They did get her in there in that 4-hour time span, but unfortunately, it did not work.
That's like a critical time for this drug to do
It's 4
something.
hours from what
Yeah.
I learned through the process. It's a 4-hour
You're teaching
time.
me. I don't know either. Yeah.
Time,
So,
yeah. Um, that 4-hour gap is your best odds to just clear the stroke up, and then it's just a recovery from there. So that didn't work. They flew somebody up, I guess, from New York. I don't know where, but they did a surgery where they go up an artery in the leg all the way up into the brain.
mm,
Crazy, right? To unclot it, and they did that. It was successful. She was on her way to recovery, and then 2 days later, another just randomly massive stroke happened on the. Hold on, I gotta get this right because I got it wrong one time, and on the right side of her brain.
okay.
So it's kind of like, it's funny how it works. So the right side of your brain is kind of in control of your left. That makes sense. So big chunk, I guess you could say, died off, or it just turns into scar tissue. All those connections, hard wires are gone, right? Um, and so with that, pretty much paralyzed on the left side. Couldn't eat solid foods because couldn't really talk. The vocal cord, everything on your left, sight, hearing, everything's is gone. And at the time, the stroke. Is it okay that I'm going into such detail,
Yeah,
or
I mean, I
did you
think
want
it
to
kind
fast
of show.
forward from?
Well, I think it shows that you have a um how much was deteriorating and how much of her the
Yeah,
things that she needed to do every day, because this led to you having to help her do these
right,
things every day when she came home from the hospital. Let's fast forward. Like, so when did the ovarian cancer kind of get
of course.
diagnosed?
So yeah, at the hospital, the doctors thought it was COVID because they're like, what? Why is this 35-year-old healthy, beautiful young mother having these strokes? Like, it was a real question mark. And long story short is she complained about her abdomen one day. They took a scan. They saw a 10 centimeter mass in there. They couldn't operate or do anything at the time to test it because she was just in rough shape, right? So
Yes.
they really weren't gonna.
Because this
She
was after the stroke.
This was after the second stroke. So
After the
so
second
during
stroke.
that
Wow.
second stroke, the brain was swelling so much. They did a life-saving surgery where they removed the skull and let the brain swell out. Otherwise, the brain would just collapse the your neck and you go paralyzed and it
How
needed room to swell out.
terrifying. Yeah. Well,
Does that
and so
make
my question is like, because I know that she's getting great care because you are there for her and you're providing great care
yeah,
for Kinlea. Like, who's caring for you during this time when you're in the
so
hospital and doing all those things? Like, who's helping educate you, train you, tell you what's going on? What are they doing for you?
height of COVID, I had no one. I had the nurses and the doctors and the rehab team and the neurology team and I had everybody's phone number on my phone, which is a great point that we need to get to, is like no one's going to take care of your loved one better than you. And I noticed that. I mean, as great as the nurses and doctors were, the staff was amazing. Still, like I nobody will take the time than family.
Yeah.
So
And you're the
so
expert in her. Like, you know her preferences, you know what makes her comfortable,
exactly.
her favorite
Yes.
fabrics, her whatever. Like, is she hot or cold? Like, so
Right.
were you able to see, did they make, were you allowed to see her during that time?
It was very hard to get in because obviously everyone's
Yeah.
at the Pentagon to get in, right? But um
Mm,
wasn't taking no for an answer, let's just say that. And I
good
I
for
just
you.
I talked to the right people, and I was just, I think they saw my situation, with my young one, and was like, all right, this is gone. So
Yeah.
gowned up with COVID patients left and right, and I don't know what's going on with that. I had to be with her. It's a stroke. She has no idea what's going on. She needs somebody on her side, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
So
so
yeah.
then at what point after all that did she come home from the hospital? And then what kind of training and support and resources did you have then?
Sure. Right. So to rewind and to your main point before was I was like a sponge in the hospital. I soaked everything up I could. I asked everybody the questions, watched the rehab team because again, knew nothing about caregiving, but I knew that I knew my new role. It was like this, um, it's not going to get back to the way it was. Let's just say that. And the sooner
Hmm.
I realized that, I think the easier it was. So that's when the learning started to begin and asking the questions. And again, my main focus has always been to get her back to as best she can as a mom and the person she used to be.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with that said, we came home and I just applied everything I learned. There was a rehab place around the corner that I was able to take her to, and
Okay.
um, financially and with my health insurance through my company, they really didn't offer a lot in terms of at-home care. So they had a
Did they
nurse.
offer anything?
So they had a nurse come once a week for the first
Okay.
2 weeks to just
Okay.
take vitals. And also they had somebody come and give her a shower once a week for it was for 3 weeks. And then they get exhausted and you're on your own at that point. Um, and it's an awful feeling.
It's an awful feeling.
It went from social workers in the hospital to somewhat guiding you. They did the best that they could, but they're dealing with stuff all day long, so they can only give you so much attention, right? But yeah, pretty much when you're home and everything is exhausted, and like me, I didn't have the funds to continue at home help. So, it's just like, all right, here we go. This is my new norm. And I took over from there. And fast forward to today, everything is so much better. She's amazing. My life as a caregiver is so much easier from the beginning. So as much as I get upset and complain, she's doing amazing. Like it's ridiculous how well she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it as those of us
Yeah,
have, it's introduced to you through TikTok, I think. So
right,
watching the progression of, where you were and where you've come, it gives people hope, frankly, like not just for
right.
Kanleah, but also for you, Matthew, like watching
Yeah.
your, journey from the, emotional outbursts and screams
Mhm.
sometimes that you were feeling, which was totally, listen, like you've been through a whole grief scenario with what you have been through of grieving your old life, of grieving the life like you thought you and Kanleah were going to have in your future, of grieving how you thought you were going to be interacting as parents
Right.
with your son, your job. Like what did you do for a living?
So I was a graphic designer for a company, and I was in the graphic design field for about like 10 years. And so, oh my gosh, I
And
hope I
then
don't rip
recently,
snot
yeah,
everywhere.
no, that's okay. I mean, like this is authentic. Like this is why we spotlight
Okay.
caregivers on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, because
Okay.
you are the expert in caregiving. I know you're still learning and I'm still learning every day, but like we're as close as we can get to the experts in caregiving. So I'd
Well, you
like to
said it
kind of,
on one of your other podcasts. The only way you could get, what was it, a master's in caregiving is to
yes.
become one. That's it, right? Is that?
And that's not my line. It's a friend's line that I'm just
It's
like,
great.
that's it. Like,
Yeah, it's great.
it's nobody wants this masters, right? And you
Um,
just
right.
I love the name of your business, the dedicated caregiver, because you are like, you're committed and you're gonna figure this shit out and you're gonna do whatever it takes for yourself and your son and your wife. So if
I get a lot of
you,
messages. I get a lot of messages, and it's shocking about like just people who leave their significant other in times, and I didn't even cross my mind, and you
yes.
know,
I don't know if you listened to another episode that earlier this year was Joe Vasquez, who is
did
another friend of TikTok. His wife had a traumatic brain injury. Now their marriage was kind of on a rocky road before all of that happened. I will say in hindsight, that was a blessing that you were in a good, in a good spot before that. But same kind of thing he said is like people expected
yeah,
him to leave, and it's like, what? Like, and yet and I don't know if they do that mostly because you're a guy. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why would people say that?
that's tough because I really don't know the statistics. I know that on the full spectrum, I'm sure guys are on the low end of being caregivers. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially for a guy, right? There's a lot of things guys need, intimacy, and a lot of that goes, not intimacy, but like how do I say this? The 50-50, like just
Like sharing,
touching.
yeah,
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, just
yeah,
just
affection. Yes, like
affection. There you go. Perfect word.
yeah. Well, and depending
And
on your love language, right? Like if it
right.
touches your love language, in my case, it's acts of service. So, if you want to show me love in my house, you're going to do the laundry and empty the dishwasher and all of that, which I know you're doing all of those things. So, but
Oh,
like
it's
we
never
know,
ending. It's never
yeah,
ending.
you'll never be bored. And like, and trying to kind of find the humor in that a little bit
Mm,
can be healing. But there is, I think it's great that you're in this space as a guy. You're a young guy with a young family who had a budding career, going for them. And you're very vocal and out there as far as like the impacts that this has had for you. And I think like, I'm glad, frankly, that caregivers are like fed up and we're just going to start talking about this stuff, because the more we talk about it and normalize it, hopefully, and the faces that kind of go along with these stories, then we can really impact the change of that. So let's talk about the stories part of
yeah,
it, like social media. Like what are some of the pros and cons of like putting your story out there on social media?
sure. Right. And this is an important point. Let me just blow my nose.
I
Sorry. That's
love it.
so
Yeah,
embarrassing, but
you might
whatever.
need a nap after this. I'm sorry,
I know, right?
it's heavy. Yeah.
So this is very important. Okay. So I used TikTok as a tool at the time. I knew nothing about TikTok. I mean, all I knew was it was a dancing app, right? That's all I heard of. And um, just one random day, she was getting chemo and just sitting there, and I was like, let me just open up the app and check it out. And made one video. I forget my first video, but I was just reaching out to see if there was anybody out there that can just relate. And
You were isolated. Like, what
oh my
else?
goodness, yeah.
Yes.
Uh, just because I've never heard of such a story before, and it seemed like the doctors and nurses didn't either. But as I got the story out there, I just got more and more feedback from other people's story, and it to be honest, in a weird, selfish way, felt good. Right,
Yeah.
hearing other people like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not, there's other people going through some part of
Some
my
people have it worse.
there's
Some
other
people
people
have
going through some
it.
shit out there, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Listen, there's
y-
53 million plus. I really think that number is very low. Like,
yeah,
there's so many
yeah.
that are doing, and there are different levels of it. And you are heavy into it day in, day out, like being the person that's showing up. Um, okay, so you found that you weren't alone, that you've getting some people to relate, and that
Yes,
can
and
feels
there was just
comforting.
one video where I was like, okay, you know what? Screw it. Like, I don't care if it's embarrassing. I need people to hear me just scream. Like, this is ridiculous, the amount that is on my shoulders right now. So I made that one video of me screaming in the car, and uh yeah, changed our life. We have 1.3 million followers on TikTok, always rooting us
Wow.
on. I mean, we see people in the mall and they're like, "Hey, I know you from TikTok," and I feel amazing when people come up to us and say, "Wow, look how amazing she looks." Because I mean, a lot of people can attest to this, but like, there is no way I thought we would make it this far in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and
Absolutely
when they
not.
do that, Matthew, like, that's you. They're coming up and saying she's doing amazing. Yes, she's doing some work, but you are her, like, number one supporter, showing up for her day in, day out, that dedicated caregiver, as you say. Like, that's a reflection of your hard work and your input in that, frankly. So I hope that you
Yeah.
see that way, that yeah, she's doing a lot to recover, but you're
Mhm.
making it all happen as well, and really being advocating for her. And I can tell
Mhm.
you that if she did not have you, she would not be in the situation of where you guys are today, if she did not have you with her by her side.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Thanks.
Mm. Why do you think the vulnerability part of it, like that authenticity and that vulnerability, like, what were you hoping that would do when you posted that video? Like, why was that important to you to kind of put that out there and show that side of caregiving?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that and I don't say this in a harsh way, but just need to open their eyes to see a lot of the unsung heroes out there, that deserve a little bit of credit,
Yes.
that scream was for all the other caregivers out there who are just going through it. Because let me tell you, I hear the stories. Oh, I hear them. That's why I always get so emotional talking about it, because I know how strong
Because
everybody
you,
is,
yeah,
just fighting for
you're,
their loved ones.
would you say you're an empath? I guess I don't know what I'm definitely that too. Like, you just have to scratch the surface, and like I'm already, and we're tearing up together. Like, it's, that's what we're doing here. So
I think right before
um
the podcast, I was like warning Elizabeth,
yes.
I might lose, I might get emotional, and boom, right off the bat. So I apologize.
No apology. Like, and that's what I want to tell
Yeah.
people out there is, like, let's not apologize for being real and like being
Mhm.
human. And that you've got to let that stuff out though, Matthew, too, because it's
Sure.
like it'll start revealing itself in other ways. Like, if you don't
Right.
cathartically release it
Yeah.
in a healthy way, it shows up in unhealthy ways. Like, this body is smart, and it will catch up with us. So how do
Right. Well,
you,
can I
yeah,
talk to that? Oh, just a really
yes.
important point on that, because I did want to mention it, but it's back to the TikTok. I used it as a therapy almost. I did go see a few therapists. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and it was very expensive. Let's just say that. And I used it as a therapy, just to talk to people, and everybody who did reach out to Cauli and myself. It was great to just have a little conversation, and it got to be a little overwhelming. I wish I could respond to everybody's comments, but it was It's just great to have a back and forth with other people, who get it, right? So
Yeah. Do you
again,
think that,
therapist, not for me. I'm not saying it, don't do it, because
yeah,
who knows, maybe I just didn't meet the right one. But for me, TikTok, social media was a help and a therapy for me.
yeah, emotional outlet. And I don't know,
Still
to your
is.
point, like the therapy, like I don't know if they were caregivers, if that would have made a difference, like if they had,
Yeah.
maybe, but to your point, it is also expensive. And if you were already struggling with the financial part of it and the work part of it, it was like another thing. So I'm glad you figured that out. I'm glad you figured out that social media could be, in way, therapy for you,
Yeah, it
social
is a tool.
social self-care,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
Mm. What, you had shared with me that like organization is like crucial because you're like
Mm.
one guy holding all of this stuff together in your home and for your wife. So what are some of the organization tips you would have shared with, initial Matthew, or let's say somebody who's new to this role of caregiving? Like if you can kind of like get them up to where you are today and share something that would help
Mm.
them, what would that be?
Yeah, so organization is great. And I was the guy where my office desk was a nightmare, right? It was not organized at all. So fast forward to today, I'm still trying to organize my house. I had no idea, but um, Conlea has been helping me out recently with organization, so that's great. And so example, laundry, which I didn't know how to do laundry before all this, and it was a mess. There were towels with, socks with ties, his stuff. And then as she started to get her old self, little bits and pieces back, she's like, get 2 hampers, and it's like, that's a great idea. Let me do that. So
Whites and colors, yeah.
yeah. So I'm slowly, like, my eyes are opening to the world of just the house chores, and I have so much respect for all the house chores that need to be done around the house now. But yeah, the more organized you can be, the quicker you can get into the groove of your new norm, if that makes sense. Because you're going to have to deal with a lot of paperwork, a lot of schedules, appointments, and medications. And at least for the beginning, it is crazy. But I'm happy to say there's the caregiving world is slowly starting to grow, and I'm starting to see like apps come out that are going to be super helpful, right?
Yeah.
In terms
To
of
help
appointments and
coordinate
organization.
care,
So,
medication reminders, like listen,
exactly.
anything that can help caregivers with peace of mind
Right.
and help them expand their care team, and technology can help do that. I say that technology is part of the care team because there are things that we can, like you said, getting all of our stuff in one place in a calendar. My husband and I had to have conversations about that when we were juggling care and kids and
Yeah.
work. It's a lot. And then dividing and conquering on the responsibilities, if you can, or talking to, other professionals that could potentially coach or help or do something. So there's a lot happening, I think, in the caregiving space that I think is encouraging. We've got a long way to go and we need to catch up
Oh
because
yeah.
we're
Yeah.
outnumbered. The caregivers are outnumbered by all of the people that need care. And our health and happiness matters too. Our mental health habit, it matters too,
Right.
so, you are certainly having an impact, I'm sure, on your son Ty. He's 6 years old now. He's watching dad like doing a lot of things that you didn't think dad was going to be doing. What do you think he's are some of his takeaways of that? Like if you kind of put
Yeah.
yourself in his shoes, like what do you hope for him to kind of take away from this experience?
Oh boy. Yeah. This to be fully transparent and honest, that this has been the most difficult part of this whole situation is my son and his well-being, right? So um hopefully I'm doing everything right, but Cauli and I even had the conversation before this happened. Like, God forbid something happens to one of us. What do we do? What's the game plan? And it was very easy. It was like, just put our, put our child first. We didn't even know if we were gonna have a boy or girl at the time, but just put
Mhm.
our child first, and that was that. It was pretty simple. Um, so for me, that was it. That was the game plan, and for me, it was in order to take care of him, I needed his mom to
Yes.
get back, if that makes sense. So I couldn't put him that yeah. I couldn't put him first at some points because I needed to focus on her. And at some points I had to step away from taking care of her and focus on him. And it was just a impossible juggling act that just hopefully I did all the right things. But he's amazing. He's starting to pick up cues. He'll run to mommy with the brace and try to put it on. He watches me. He's he grew up really fast through this experience,
I have
and
no doubt.
he's very independent, which is great. But I always say, like, he seems great on the outside. Hopefully everything's great under the hood. And
Right.
I think he's a happy boy right now with his mom and dad. And yeah, I think everything's great. I think
He's little, and
he's got a
it is
strong
his
family.
childhood,
And
and you're grieving the childhood that you wish that he had, and how the things that you thought you would be doing. And it seemed great on paper, your plan of like putting all
yeah,
the attention on him or your
yeah,
child, but and then also like at that point, like even putting all the tension on um Kanlea, because at some point, like for me, the analogy, I don't know if you've heard this on one of my things before, but it's like the nest of hungry birds was the analogy that made the most sense to me as a caregiver. Like, I didn't really relate to the oxygen mask thing on an airplane. Like, I kind of got it, but it was
mhm,
really this bird nest thing that I just thought of one day, and I was like, oh yeah, all these things need me, all these,
mhm.
my work needs me, my kid needs me, my wife needs me, my house needs me, the bills need me, like everybody needs me. And and they're never all satiated, right? Like they're always going to be screaming and crying for more stuff. And but I came to this realization, and I hope that you've come there too, is like, if we don't take some of the worm or the nourishment or the energy or whatever it is for ourselves, we will not be around or able to continue to feed into everybody else that needs us.
Right.
Did that did that realization come to you at some point, or has it come to you at some point where that in order for this to be a sustainable caregiving journey for you, you had to prioritize your own health and happiness?
Yeah, I think for me though, my happiness was like through my son. It's very weird to say, but I put my, like, everything that for me, I it was on the back burner, and he was my focus, and so was his mom at the time.
Yeah.
So I was just a vessel to get them where they needed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Were there
Yeah.
things though that were like joyful for your son to do that also brought you joy, like doing them together, like to kind of have the normal dad experience of, like, I don't know, going out and playing catch or going to a playground? Like maybe your self-care ish was kind of wrapped up in his kidness.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yes. You could say that. Yeah.
Interesting. It's
I
interesting.
always say that with somebody through trauma, at least for me, and they have a child involved. If you put them first and make them your focus, it kind of like, I don't know if that's the healthiest thing to do, but
Well, I
it
haven't been
gets
specifically in your shoes. So I don't, my kids were older when, and I will say I've got podcast episodes of my son and daughter. Now they were older, but I did like a look back and say, like, how did caregiving impact you? Might find it hopeful that they've gained a lot of really cool things out of watching my husband and I, do the care seasons
Mhm,
together.
mhm.
And so I think we'll look back and be like, of course Ty is doing this someday, because he's
Yeah.
seen this happen in his world. Well, caregiving also, um you lost your job, right? I mean, or did you choose to walk from your job? I'm not sure which is, but tell me about the job
Confusing.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was with my company for about 7 years. The designer ran their website, did everything for them. And then May 15th and COVID, people were working from home already. So just a weird time, right? And so working from home, wife had her stroke. They were great in the beginning. Very, very flexible. I needed to be here or do this or do that. I took the family leave or whatever it was of I don't even remember how much it was, but um it took that, and then it just started to slowly get, the writing was on the wall that, like, they're going to expect me to be like, oh, everything's back to normal, uh like a hip replacement. I'll be back in a month, or 2 months, I'll be back to normal. And that's just not the case. Your life has changed forever, right? And obviously we're just talking about my attention. Where did my attention need to go? And my attention needed to go towards them, obviously, and they were looking for somebody who can apply more time, and I can't fault them for that. If I were to go back, I recommend to anybody going through this, maybe sit down with your employer. I don't know how, it depends on how flexible they are, but come up with some sort of game plan, like, give me a certain amount of time, to see if this works. If it doesn't work, let me find something else, without just give me the boot, because that's, not a good situation to be in. So
No, you're in and I think,
yeah,
I don't know if there were options like working part-time, or could they have paid for some home care so that you had some focused work hours,
yeah.
or
So it was a freelance contract. It went from
okay.
full-time employment to freelance to, okay, this isn't going to work out. It was, I'll say, it was slowly pushing me out the door. I mean, I maybe took advantage of my situation, and it was a good excuse to give me the boot. And I don't want to talk bad about my
Yeah.
company. They were great through this whole thing. But if I were to go back, I would have cordially said, like, this is not going to work. Okay, I can't juggle this many things. This isn't ridiculous. I did it for 2 years. I was attending meetings while she's in chemo. Bringing my computer into. It was just impossible. But I did it. I felt like I needed to hold on to my job for the health benefits, if that makes sense. I was like, I need this. I need it. I can't let go of it. I need the health benefits. And if I could go back, I would have cut ties way earlier, and not need that stress. It was just
A lot.
unneeded stress at the time.
So how are you making it now? Like, if you don't mind me asking, like financially, um, I know some of your TikTok supporters help give, and social supporters are donating, and that has helped sustain you. But and will that continue to sustain you, or like, what are your thoughts there, and how are you alleviating that financial pressure?
Right. Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, as I'm sure as you know, but caregivers do not have a big salary.
No,
I'm
do
in
you
New
do you get
York.
paid in New York?
They do
Do
not get paid in
no,
New York.
I
So
don't think very like a handful of states pay family caregivers.
her aunt, or like my brother, like anybody could be a hired caregiver except a spouse in New York,
Just crazy. Like,
which,
I know that happens in a
yeah,
lot of places, and it's like, because why? Because we married this person? Like, you
I do
can't
not.
have a
Yeah,
job. I don't get that.
yeah. I feel like they almost like, they're like, oh, you're expected to take it. I mean, you know what I mean? You're the husband or wife. Of course you're gonna stay
But
there.
then
So,
how are you going to do that and
yeah,
go work outside the home? Like, it's like, come on, people. Like,
yeah.
let's, maybe
There's
they'll
got to
watch
be a
this and
better way.
understand. I know. So you have some family support, it sounds like. Um
So back to the donation. So everybody's donations has got us this far. I mean, it's amazing. In the
I
beginning,
love
everybody
that.
was so generous, and it was unbelievable. So many kind people in the world, and it allowed us to get this far. with um, ordering out and groceries and rehab, and I still get medical bills to this day. It's pretty crazy, but um, updates to the home, which is another whole thing I could get into about how expensive it is to update
To
your
be
home.
accessible for her.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
my house was very tiny to begin with, so like building a ramp when you first come home is like thousands of dollars to rent a ramp. Like these are things that you don't even think of or prepare for. But everyone's donations helped us get this far, and it's been amazing. And social media, you make a little bit here and there from the viral videos, not enough to be, to
To sustain, yeah. And
sustain. I
Georgia,
sell stuff on eBay. I just
okay.
I have to be comfortable with the fact that I'm not gonna make that 80K, 100, 200K a year, and just be happy with uh that just as long as everybody's happy and healthy, and we could go month to month. So that's all that matters. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Do you lean on your faith, or like what helps you kind of um get some serenity and calm over that? Like what helps you there?
Ooh, good question. I take my dogs for or my dog. I take my dog for a walk, and then I just been in this entrepreneurial mode, trying to start things randomly, kind of crazy, trying to be sponsored with company. Just like I said, this entrepreneur mode where working from home has been great for me and what I was meant to do and what I was supposed to do. And yeah, I find peace at putting all my time into my family and anything that benefits my family. And
Family first. I love that.
yeah, where I look now and it's like I put a lot of time into my companies and this and that. It's just like I wish I put it into me and my family. I think a lot of people are starting to think that way as well. I
Yeah, the loyalty of like working for a big, company like I saw my dad do for years, that eventually that, he went through a whole thing with the loyalty not being there anymore. And I saw that kind of firsthand in high school. And I thought, oh, well, yeah, the company loyalty is not what it used to be. Right. So we do have to kind of protect ourselves from that, I feel.
right.
In this entrepreneurial side, like I'm seeing, your graphic design stuff and how it could maybe, marry with the caregiving stuff. Like, what are you thinking about as far as where you could potentially see the dedicated caregiver going? Like, what's your intention with all of this, you think?
Yeah, great question. I think I'm still trying to figure that all out now. A lot of trial and error. It's really tough because I just feel like a old dinosaur trying to figure out all these like tech apps and YouTube and all this stuff. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh,
Yeah, no, I mean, I have thrown a lot of spaghetti at the wall, right? Like, so I started Happy Healthy Caregiver in
oh, right,
2015.
yes. Mhm.
And I was not sure. I knew that I could help people potentially while also helping myself. Like it felt good to kind of write and process and get those things out, which is similar to what you're doing with TikTok. But it wasn't until years later that I really figured out like how I could potentially monetize the business. I
Right.
don't really talk about all of that on the podcast, but I think it's
Mhm.
important to share it because for folks like you and maybe other people who are in this struggle situation, there are more companies that are out there that are trying to get their arms around caregiving. And so where I have landed is I do public speaking for employers and different organizations. I'm an educator. I became a certified caregiving consultant. I became a certified senior advisor so I could learn how to educate caregivers at scale. And then the other piece of it is that I see could be a real potential for you with all your skills, if you want to head that in that direction and don't just want to forget all about caregiving at some point. once you're a caregiver, you're always a caregiver though.
Right.
That, you know, there are a lot of companies that are coming up with products and solutions, like you said, about trying to reach family caregivers. And, you know, in some ways, we both have this in common, is that we have become kind of accidental influencers, I call it, in a
Yeah.
caregiving space where, you know, you've got a huge following of people that and have built trust with people about being authentic and being genuine. And here are some products and services that maybe could help family caregivers that were in our different situations. And do we find value in those products and services? And if so, pay us to share these things, for the content and the digital marketing content that's available on our platforms and through email newsletters and podcasts and things like that. So I definitely think that that's there for caregivers if they want to pursue it. It's not easy. Like, entrepreneurship is
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it can be very
It is.
rewarding, I think, in the caregiving space. So, but I'll be watching you to see
Mm.
what happens next. And of course, you know, supporting you in whatever way I can. And I think for now, while you're figuring it out, if people want to help you, just give you the capacity to kind of even have the mind space to even think about what you want to do next, then we'll send them to your website. We'll put the link on the website where they can choose to donate or give of what they can to help support you and Kanlea and Ty. Is, by the way, on the donation thing, like, I know there's GoFundMe, there's Venmo, there's this or that. Is there like one that you would recommend for caregivers that if they're going to explore getting donations to help them over the humps in life, like, is
Yeah.
there a preferred platform?
Good question. I haven't really dove into it too much, but I would suggest, from what I hear, there's like GoFundMe takes a good amount of fees, and a lot of people are like, I don't want to send the fees to that. I want it to go to you. And I think Venmo worked pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps. So,
Yeah.
sorry, GoFundMe, but
Yeah, I mean, I think
hopefully
we
they're not
know
your sponsor or anything.
no,
But
they're not a sponsor. No, they're not, but I think it's, you know, we want as much of the money, the funds to go to the individuals, I think is what you're
Well, I
getting
mean,
at.
it gets very expensive with this equipment. And like you said, I had companies reach out that did, you're right, they did send us equipment to you. It was awesome. It was fantastic. And a lot of it was
Yeah.
helpful. Um, just
Yeah, there
didn't
are rental
promote the cheesy
companies.
stuff, but
Yeah, there's
yeah,
101 Mobility. I know does. I had to rent a ramp for my mom when she came to visit one time. I just recently learned in Georgia, like, there's a place that does refurbished equipment that then
mhm,
they donate. Like, I don't know if that exists in New York, but maybe somebody listening knows about that stuff and can kind of, like, that's the power of the caregiving community, is really
right,
uniting to share all of that information, because yeah, the experts in caregiving are caregivers. All right,
right,
we got to dive in, Matthew, to the I'm going to get your thoughts on a
do it,
couple prompts in the journal.
sure.
So let's see, what this is from my journal, the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. Um what hobby? Remember those? What hobby do you most enjoy doing?
Oh gosh. I don't want to sound cheesy and do the video game and all that stuff, but recently with Cauli, this is going to sound so cheesy, and I'm going to love it, and my wife's going to laugh probably in the background. But
I love it.
gardening, I took up gardening.
Ah,
Yeah, it's just been a great hobby to you just see these.
I don't think it's cheesy. I think
Yeah, I don't know.
it's like, nature is very healing for me to get outside
Yeah,
and
and
dig in the
she
dirt.
enjoys the heck out of it, and
He
anything that
enjoys
makes her
it.
happy makes me happy. So
And
this is.
Ty can get in there and get his hands dirty.
Yeah, he loves
Um,
it. He loves the caterpillar as he's involved. We involve him as much as we can.
Perfect. I love that. Um, what's one thing you admire about your family?
Oh gosh, their strength and just not giving up. You know, I say it all the time. The most powerful thing is uh, uh, a mom fighting to get back to her child. I mean, I've never seen anything more powerful than that. So
Yes, it's beautiful.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Okay, here's an easy one. What do you order at your local coffee shop?
Oh gosh, iced caramel latte.
Very good. Those are fun. Sometimes it's just a quick and easy, like little self-care thing to do that. Well, Matthew, is there anything else that you're like, we cannot wrap up the show unless I mention this? And
Uh,
also, how do people stay connected with your caregiving story, your life, your situation, and continue to support you? Like, where do they find you?
sure. So the dedicatedcaregiver.com. You touched upon it earlier with the monetization thing. We're really trying to promote our YouTube channel to get those watch hours up. And a part of
Follow
kind
them
of
on
this,
YouTube, dedicated
yes, follow
caregiver.
us, both of us on YouTube or wherever. Just follow both of us, support us, because I really want to. We've been starting to go out a lot, getting Kanlea out there. The weather's nice. She's more mobile, as you can see from our current TikToks. And I want to start filming our experience and showing people out there that don't let a disability keep you at home. You can make it to the botanical gardens where we just went and have an amazing time. So hopefully our videos will be helpful and educational. And wow, we can do that. And exactly what you're doing as well. Just getting our experiences out there in hopes to helping others, right?
I love it. Well, I'll
Yeah.
definitely subscribe when we
Thank you.
hang out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything you've shared today. I hope it was cathartic. And I know, no, again, no apologies for any of the emotions because that's
Oh
real.
boy.
And I,
Okay.
I, that's what I love about watching you and your authenticity and your vulnerability, particularly as a male caregiver, I think is so well needed. There are so many unsung hidden heroes out there, and they
Mhm.
need to see themselves when they're looking in social media. And so thank you for being that person.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. And it was great chatting. And
Yes. And hugs to the family.
thank you. You as well.